Hello and welcome to Opera Road Trip, Operavision's 2-year podcast series exploring opera from its 16th century Italian roots to its role today across Europe and beyond. I'm your host, Sebastian Schwarz, and in today's episode, rather than taking you to any individual country to look at its operatic traditions, let's together take a look at a category of Operavision partners that play a particularly important role in the operatic world for emerging artists. Singing competitions. Many singers and artist managers I heard from in preparation of this episode feel it was getting increasingly difficult to get the attention of artistic directors or casting managers. After a short period of perceived increased transparency, they feel like there is now less transparency than ever as to how roles are cast. And indeed, having programmed and cast hundreds of operas myself, it is a very complex web of artistic decisions that have to be taken into account in the casting process. There is the overarching artistic vision of any given season or festival program. There are, of course, what each role objectively demands: the vocal, musical and stylistic requirements, the intensity and credibility of acting, specific skills or personality traits that are needed for certain roles. And then there are the musical vision of the conductor, the ideas of the stage director and the design team. There is the availability of artists and their affordability for the limited budgets of the producing institutions. There are artists to whom the institution, the casting director, conductor or director want to be loyal due to successful and fulfilling collaborations in the past. Artists they wish to grow into a certain repertoire. There are artists who are particularly beloved by managements and audiences for their unique skills and characteristics, for their reliability and professionalism. All these highly subjective and hardly measurable skills and aspects go into the mix when casting decisions are made. Very often it happened to me that I planned certain operas with very specific singers in mind, and had they not been available, I would have rather postponed the production until they were. Consequently, these roles never really became available to just anyone, and I never held auditions for them because I knew very clearly whom I or the team wanted for these roles and why. And while there are numerous choir positions advertised on the various platforms like Bühnenjobs or Theapolis, etc., there are very few auditions listed for solo roles. The process for these is simply different, and it would be unrealistic to expect this to change. Some help for young soloists now comes from the next generation pages of Opera Europa and Opera Book, which list links and deadlines for competitions and young artist program applications and generally offer visibility to emerging artists. And there are the auditionoracle.com and the pages of YapTracker and the NATS, N-A-T-S, the National Association of Teachers of Singing, that list auditions and opportunities. The one instrument that I have come to appreciate as most efficiently showcasing new talent when it comes to singers are singing competitions. They often spark both hope and heated debate in the opera world. For some, they're a golden opportunity, for others, a deeply flawed system. But before we look at the upsides and possible downsides, let's bring in my first guests so we can get to know a few singing competitions, whose finals you can also follow on Operavision. For the first one, we're joined by Beata Klatka, who since 2012 has been the director of what is really the Polish national singing competition, the Moniuszko competition. But Beata, first of all, please help us with the proper Polish pronunciation of your competition so we can avoid me mispronouncing it for an entire episode.
International Stanisław Moniuszko Vocal Competition.
Thank you, Beata. So the Stanisław Moniuszko competition was created by the Polish soprano, stage director and opera director Maria Fołtin in 1992 and is now organized by the Polish National Opera in Warsaw, where it takes place every 3 years.
At the very beginning, it was not connected with the opera because it was connected with the Moniuszko Society, but then later it was like regularly organized at the opera. And from 2006, it's as a, let's say, one of the most important goals of the opera. So it's based now at the theater, and it's within structure of the opera.
Obvious from the title, the competition pays special attention to showcasing Polish repertoire, which in itself already sets it apart from other competitions. Tell us a bit about the competition and about its challenges.
Yeah, this is quite obvious that we have Polish repertoire, obligatory Polish repertoire, one song and one aria to be performed by participants. So this is quite a challenge for us to attract young singers to perform the songs and sometimes arias which are not known for them. They are not acquainted with Polish repertoire. Moniuszko is not so well promoted and it's not so well known. It's much better with Szymanowski, but it's not so easy. So it's a huge effort to send all the information, to get in touch directly with the professors, with the people who are responsible for young artist programs, and just to attract young singers via Instagram and all social media. So this year we got more than 450 applications, which is a huge number, and from this number, maximum 80 singers can be admitted to the competition. So despite that singers do not have to perform in Polish. They can sing in translations. They mostly choose Polish language, which is a huge joy. And this is such a joy also for the audience to hear young singers from the world who perform Polish repertoire with a perfect pronunciation and with a very nice understanding and feeling. So I think this is very special because the temperature during the performances is very high. Sometimes singers are applauded before they started singing because they perform, for example, very well-known and beloved aria of Wiątek, and the big audience is reacting before even. So this is also the goal of the competition, to promote our music.
Like with the best competitions, winners of former editions of the Moniuszko competition can be found on the world stages now, like Aleksandra Kurzak, Alexei Markov, Andrzej Fiłonczyk, and Salome Dzica. The winner of the most recent edition of the Stanisław Moniuszko International Vocal Competition in 2025 is the 26-year-old British tenor Samuel Stopford. Let's listen to an excerpt from his winning aria Cisza Dokoła from Moniuszko's Straszny Dwór, the Haunted Manor, which also won him the Maria Foltyn Prize for the best interpretation of an aria by Moniuszko.
Tę pieśń swobodnie nuci, gdy za najświętszą sprawę śpieszy oddać krew. Widzeń jak matka niepewna cię ją wróci. Wzywa Boga, prosi Boga, by łagodził wojny gniew. Matka moja miła, gdy
For our next competition, we travel further north, and I welcome Lars Flaaten, the director of the Queen's Sonja Singing Competition in Oslo.
Yes, thank you, Sebastian. Thank you for inviting me to this podcast. I'm thrilled.
Lars, can one say that it was no other than the great Kirsten Flagstad who laid the foundation for the Queen Sonja Singing Competition? Tell us a bit about the history.
Kirsten Flagstad was the first director of the Norwegian Opera. It only came in 1958. Very young company. Kirsten Flagstad had made her career in the US, and she was worldwide known. And her Dido and Aeneas was especially known for us Norwegians. And we listened to her at the Academy, and that sound, that made it that made the theater coming through for me. It started all with the piano competition. We had two successful competitions, one in 1988 and one in 1992. And then we needed some time to bring in more money to make this go on. And then we sat down and said, how can a nation like Norway make a competition that make an impact in the music world, being in the jungle of music competition? And then we decided, well, it was in 1995, it was 100 years anniversary for Kirsten Flagstad's birth. And then, in fact, we decided to focus on singing, because we thought with singing, we had the chance to make it. And also, I would say that the international aspect is very important to Norway. So what separates us is maybe also that we have a regulation that says that we can only have in the competition 4 singers from each nation, which is not a very artistic regulation, but it brings a kind of widespread representations from all over the world. And often we have 40 to 50 nations represented amongst the applications, and we think that's good.
The Queen Sonja competition takes place every other year. The most recent one from 2025, currently available on Opera Vision. Now, what makes the Queen Sonja competition so special? Having been on your jury, I can definitely say it is a very special competition, but what is it in your eyes that sets it apart from the many competitions out there?
It's a good question, because each music competition has its own history, its own values, and its own kind of strategy to have an impact on the music life. May I just turn a bit back to when the music competition arose, yes, in the early 60s, in fact. That was a protest. It was a revolution against nepotism within the music industry. That's the basic of the music competition, giving everybody a chance. You shouldn't have known that and that and that person. You should be exposed, and it should be fairness, and everybody coming from wherever in the world and from whatever background should have the same chance. Mm-hmm. That was the idea of the competition. Maybe that idea was kind of fitting a bit in with the Norwegian mentality. Mm-hmm. Being a very egalitarian society, it's not really about picking a winner. It's about bringing forward some good forces within an artist. And I think that remains in our competition today. Okay, then we have some prizes. Some substantial prizes, may I add. Our first prize is 50,000 euros. That comes handy. We try to treat every participant as something that we want to put a good experience in their lives, so that when they leave Oslo, they leave it with some experience that they could profit on later on. Mm-hmm. So we have career development sessions, many competitions have. And we also have a strategy to only have casting directors or directors that could give engagements in the jury, because we want them to have engagements. We want to present them to the industry. We see as a responsibility to help them to have sustainable careers.
You have prepared a little research for us today, according to which, from a sample size of 21 opera companies that you checked, 65 former prize winners and finalists from 28 different countries have 107 contracts in the current season. This is an impressive result as it is, and I'm sure if you were to widen the search to more theatres, even more contracts would result. These numbers speak to the generally high level of the singers that compete in the Queen Sonja competition, and to the profound impact of your competition on the career chances of these young singers. Some names of winners of previous editions can be found all over the programs of opera companies across the world. There was Daniel Behle, Odin Iversen, Kristina Mkhitaryan, who won in 2013, and then...
It's impossible, of course, then to get around Lise Davidsen, who happens to be Norwegian. And she came to us in 2015. I had a very distinguished jury at the time, represented also by Jonathan Friend from the Met Opera. I sat beside him when Lise opened her mouth. And after, I think, 17 seconds or something, Jonathan Friend looked at me and he was astonished. And then he whispered, in 4 years, she will perform at the Metropolitan. And she did. And she debuted with Lisa in Tchaikovsky's Queen of the Spade. We are, of course, proud of Lise Davidsen, but we are proud of all our singers. and there are many that have very good careers today.
I'm glad that you mentioned Lisa. She has had a marvelous career since winning your competition in 2015, and I can confirm that her debut as Ariadne of Naxos back when I was at Glyndebourne in 2017 was a direct consequence of her amazing performance in the competition. Now, it is the Queen Sonja Singing Competition. What role does the Queen of Norway play in the competition? Is she actively involved?
Oh, I love that question, because her role is in fact of great importance to us. She is personally very, very dedicated. The Queen has been following the competition on each finals concert since we started, and Her Majesty is so important for us when it comes to be inspired, and it helps us a bit that when it comes to present jury members for the Queen and that kind of nice to do. And in this way, the Queen could represent the music life in Norway in a very, very good way. So she is one of the best ambassadors we could think of, also because she's very cunning. Her Majesty could sit listening to the competition and the jury would go in the room to make the decision. I will go to the room with Her Majesty and we make our own jury. And a little secret, she's most of the year spot on when it comes to find the first prize winner. Sometimes there is a little disagreement, but she's of great value to us and we love her.
I can testify to the love that I felt in the room when I got to be in the jury of your competition in 2017, and it happened to be the Queen's birthday on the finals. And everybody got to sing that sweet Norwegian happy birthday song for her that involves a little dance. I remember the melody even after all these years, definitely not the words, something like yum da 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 dee da da da, yum da 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 dee da, and so on.
That's the first prize. Definitely.
That's very generous of you, thank you. I do remember there was not a person in the auditorium that didn't join in singing, with the sole exception of the jury. We had been instructed as to the various aspects around the protocol around Her Majesty, but nobody had thought to teach us the song. But let's listen to some proper award-winning singing now. An excerpt from Arabella by Richard Strauss, sung by the winner of the 2025 Queen Sonja Singing Competition, the US-American soprano Kathleen O'Mara.
Ich
Competitions can offer incredible opportunities for emerging artists. Performing for a jury of artistic and casting directors, conductors, and agents means being seen by the people who actually make casting decisions. And when everything aligns, the voice, the interpretation, the timing, competitions can lead directly to engagements or invitations to prestigious young artist programs or seasons. They also push singers to grow. Preparing for a competition demands focused practice, refined technique, and a polished stage presence. Many competitions even include masterclasses and feedback, offering real educational value and not just judgment. Then there's the financial side, prize money, and substantial prize money in some cases, as we just heard, scholarships, travel stipends. For young singers navigating expensive training and audition tours, that support can be a lifeline. If used smartly, competitions can also be networking hubs. You meet fellow singers, coaches, and industry insiders. You share stories, frustrations, tips, ask for feedback, and maybe you will make friends who become future colleagues on stage. And for jurors and institutions, these events are about discovering new talent, mentoring artists, and keeping the operatic tradition alive and evolving. But these benefits exist alongside real and valid criticisms, concerns that many in the opera world have voiced for years. One big issue? Subjectivity. Judging singing is not like timing a sprint or measuring a high jump. Taste, aesthetic, and cultural bias can all shape how jurors respond to an artist. What one panel sees as expressive, another might dismiss as unpolished. While there are clear criteria for what makes healthy singing, here's no universal standard. And sometimes amazing singers go unnoticed simply because they don't fit a mold. Then there's the pressure. Competitions can create a high-stakes atmosphere that rewards safe, crowd-pleasing performances over risk-taking or individuality. That's not always great for artistic diversity and growth. There's also criticism around gatekeeping and favoritism. When juries favor singers from certain schools, networks, or nationalities, consciously or not, and when competitions are tied to institutional agendas, say to promote a certain voice type, language, or regional identity, things can get political. Then there are the competitions that serve the sole purpose of casting roles for an upcoming opera production somewhere. This is a favorite in Italy, for example. While in itself not a bad thing, basically just another way of casting, these often lack transparency as to which roles are actually still open, and I have heard countless complaints from singers about such competitions being taken over by agencies present in the juries, for example, placing their artists who then miraculously win the roles. And finally, competitions where the best one wins have little to do with performing in opera productions, where it is all about working together to make music and tell the story. Success in competitions doesn't always translate into a lasting career. Some winners struggle to translate their competition success and the competitive mode into the collaborative world of opera. Meanwhile, many incredible singers who never won a major prize go on to have rich, meaningful careers. As with everything in life, finding our way around this maze of good and bad, of transparent and fair competitions on the one hand, and quite possibly rigged or otherwise unduly influenced competitions on the other hand, very much requires common sense, proper research, and making use of today's technologies and network possibilities. Is information on who is actually on the jury readily available? It is easy to find out the winners of past editions of competitions. It is equally easy to get in touch with them and ask them about their experience. My guests today all represent competitions that have been tried and tested over the years. They represent the good competitions that try to be transparent and fair, and all of them try to offer their participants also experiences and advantages that go beyond the monetary awards of the main prizes. Masterclasses, jury feedback, roles in upcoming seasons, additional minor awards, coachings, and many more. Let's hear from Armenian soprano Kristina Mkhitaryan, who has recently been back to the Metropolitan Opera for Michaela and Carmen, and who can currently be heard at the Vienna State Opera as Massenet's Manon and as La Traviata, and later on this year also as Leila in The Pearl Fishers. Kristina, thank you for joining me today to talk about your experience with singing competitions.
Да, спасибо, дорогой. Я очень рада, что мы сегодня поговорим на такую важную тему.
Yes, thank you, dear. I'm very glad that today we'll talk about such an important topic for young aspiring opera singers. This is very important because I believe that my path in opera began precisely thanks to competitions. The first competition in Europe was Vignas. I won the third prize. After that, I was accepted to the Young Artist programme of the Bolshoi Theatre. And then, in the summer, I applied to the Queen Sonja competition and won the first prize. I was the first Russian singer to receive the first prize at such a prestigious competition. And after the competition, I had my first contract. I sang my debut in Europe, my debut in the theatre in Oslo, and my role debut as La Traviata. In general, this was my debut in Europe, and already with such an important part. I don't know how they trusted me with this, but it was very nice. Thanks to the jury members that recognised me at this competition, other contracts followed. There was Michaela in Carmen, contracts in Copenhagen, and with you, Sebastian, in Glyndebourne. In general, of course, this competition, this victory gave me a huge leap. I'm very grateful, and I think that now, the fastest, most possible path for young singers to show themselves is the participation in competitions. Then I had competitions Neue Stimmen, Vercelli, Operalia, and I might be forgetting something. In general, we say for singers that there are those who are the competition type and those who are not. It all depends on the nerves. Not everyone's nervous system can cope with this load of competition responsibility. But I always treated competitions the other way round. I wasn't so responsible because I was flying to another country. Nobody knew me, and I was free from expectations of those who did already know me, could free my passion and even take some risks. But some people, on the contrary, are reserved, and it's hard for them to open up at competitions. Therefore, the main thing is not to despair, not to be disappointed. It just means that you're not a competition singer, and that you'll need to go the direct way, to auditions in theatres, to auditions for a specific agent, director, conductor, to audition for young artist programmes. Maybe it will not be as stressful for you there. There are, for example, my dear singers, wonderful colleagues, who simply started their careers right away in performances. It happened that someone there got sick and they knew the parts and jumped in, and so their career began, even though they weren't doing so well with competitions. Or, for example, there are singers who feel great in concerts. They can manifest themselves and they can be noticed there. In general, if the competitions do not work, you just need to try to find your own individual path.
Индивидуальный путь.
You are singing in very exciting opera houses all over the world. Is there anything you would do differently were you given the chance to try it all over again?
Нет, ты знаешь, я бы ничего не меняла.
No, you know, I wouldn't change anything. I would even praise myself for having done well. At the beginning of my career, I very often said no to parts that I thought were not right for me. And I made the right choice, because I've always wanted a long, well-thought-out, measured career. And as time has shown, so far, I made the right choices. Really, I wasn't afraid to say no, even to the most wonderful and prestigious theatres, because I understood that something wasn't right for my voice at that point. I wouldn't have grown in this part, or, on the contrary, it would have been too heavy for me, or the tessitura too high. In general, listen to yourself. Don't be afraid to say no. And I would also praise myself for my experiments with Baroque music, because I never sang Baroque music before professionally, in performances. But I loved it very much. I sang arias, of course, but somehow Baroque music seemed to me a sphere a little apart from opera, and I felt that it would be difficult for me technically to perform the demands of Baroque conductors. But, fortunately for me, I said yes to some very quick offers. My first experience was Cavalli's Il Giassone, and I stepped in for someone, quickly learned the part, and jumped into the production with Maestro Alarcón, and that's it. I fell in love with Baroque music. I realised that I can do it well and at a high level. It was not easy, of course. I worked hard, strove for style, for everything. But now I'm proud for having said yes to this experiment, for having accepted the challenge to jump into a Baroque production, into the Baroque world. And now I'm simply in love and very, very much looking forward to more offers for the Baroque repertoire.
По барочному репертуару.
Today's episode will obviously be heard also by many young singers. Is there anything you would want to share with them in terms of advice?
Да, я бы, конечно, посоветовала для...
Yes, I would certainly advise that it's very important to prepare the right repertoire. It seems to me that you should always have 6 arias, 5, 6, 7 arias, which you can sing in any condition. 3 of them, for example, can be 2 parts A-B arias, virtuosic, complex. Well, of course, within your capabilities. 2 or 3 can show your knowledge of languages, for example, if you're good at this. Of course, you need to show only your strengths. The weaknesses need to be veiled so that your pluses, your strong points are visible. And you need to correctly distribute the repertoire throughout the competition because there are 2 or 3 rounds and then the final. You need to distribute everything. Think about everything with your teacher. How, with what will we start? You must start with something bright and impressive. The first sound should always be very bright, very much in the voice, in the timbre. Don't think that once you've started, you'll warm yourself up, get into the programme, as there might not be a second chance. You might not get into the next round to show more. So always start with something bright, something you're confident in. Think through your repertoire. Don't run faster than your legs can carry you. Don't take something super complicated or super dramatic, because all competitors are young, and the jury understands that sometimes we may just not have grown into the heavier repertoire yet, that we need to show ourselves and impress them with something that shows our strengths now. Everything according to our capabilities at that moment. But at the same time, look for a bright, interesting, tasty, enjoyable programme so that you're noticed. I think that 80% depends firstly on the choice of repertoire and then how you perform it.
It was a pleasure having you with us today. Let me share with our listeners also an excerpt of your singing, in this case as Medora in Verdi's Il Corsaro from Valencia. Thank you so much, Kristina.
Спасибо, мой дорогой, и я всегда ценю...
Thank you, my dear. And I always appreciate and remember how you noticed me in the youth programme of the Bolshoi Theatre, even before these competitions, and how carefully you treat young singers and how you help them. I also follow your example. I teach and I help and I always give advice. I share my experience, my observations about our profession. And I think that it's very important to help the young colleagues so that our opera world can flourish, because I believe that opera has the power to heal people's souls, and people come and leave transformed after good performances. Just notice their eyes. Yes, you can see it in their eyes when this magic happens on stage. That's why we, who've already some experience, should always help and support the young and guide them. Thank you. It was so nice to talk.
Спасибо, было очень приятно пообщаться.
Many of you will know my next guest from his iconic interpretations of Prince Gogo or Prince Orlovsky, among so many others. Parallel to his active performing career, Andrew Watts has taken over the directorship of the International Voice Competition, probably better known under the often mispronounced name of the town hosting it since 1954 in the south of the Netherlands. But let's take this directly to Andrew, who surely must know how to pronounce it.
That's very interesting. When I took the job in 2023, I had an intensive workshop. So it's s-Hertogenbosch. So it's not Bosch, but generally we just call it Den Bosch.
Andrew, thank you for joining me. Why don't we start out with you telling us a bit about the history of the IVC?
So the competition was set up 70 years ago, and in fact 2024 we celebrated our 70th anniversary. And it started as a small competition in the Benelux area, Luxembourg, Belgium, a bit of the Netherlands, and developed into what it is now, which is amongst the top competitions in the world. In fact, in 2024, we exceeded our limit by having 567 applicants for 70 places in international competition. So actually, it's on a sort of journey to make the competition more visible and more viable, and also open to people who may not have ever felt they want to take part in a competition or want to hear a competition. I think, slightly arrogantly, having a singer running the competition, a singer who's still actively out doing what I do, gives me a unique perspective into finding these singers. So if I'm singing in a house, I'll go and talk to young artists and my teaching work and stuff. So it feels to me that we're in quite a good place, because I feel that there's something worldwide, there's something globally against competition. We mustn't judge each other. We must be all equal. But actually we're judged all the time. You put a pair of jeans on, someone says, oh, they look nice, or I don't like those. It's very simple. So I think that, 70 years on, we're now into a new phase with a new sort of rebranding and rejigging of the whole organisation.
After the 2024 70-year celebrations, in 2025 you created a new sibling competition focused on lead in the uneven years, theatre and song.
So this competition is a brand new competition. It's about curation, it's about asking the artists to be imaginative, it's about them to present themselves. So they send an essay in with a program, there are theatrical elements, it's to be staged. So you present yourself as a complete artist and not just a vocalist. And I think for me, pretty singing is pretty singing, and I've sat through some of the most beautiful singing in the world, which has left me completely cold, for the simple reason it doesn't have something that gives me a real excitement of, wow, I never knew they were going to do that. The fact is that there is theatre in song, and as a singer I'm only interested in the text. Make a pretty noise, it's fine, just make the noise, but sing the words, find the imagination. So it's about curation, imagination, finding people who are real formed artists that we can sit back, and we, the people who sit back, need other things to keep us interested. It's not just enough now to have someone playing Dichterliebe while someone sings it. I mean, recently Thomas Hampson's just gone on tour with Winterreise with accordion, which is kind of weird, but it actually really worked. But it just made me think, wow, there's a different sound world. There's a different relationship physically, because you haven't got this damn great piano in the way. So for me, the theatre and song is about new artists, new ideas, giving the audience something they can also hang on to, whether it be a visual or something oral or something they can feel or a sense in the room, so that we try to sort of bring other artists involved into this new genre.
And we are excited to see what amazing lead singers and duos this new competition will bring forth. What else would you say sets the IVC apart from the hundreds of other competitions?
I think there are many ingredients that make the IVC special as a competition. Firstly, we have a very nice set of prizes. We have a very good global network of international people who visit and hear our singers. We also have this incredible thing called host families, where all of our young singers are taken into the community, and relationships and friendships have been set up over the last 70 years. We have over 150 host families looking after our participants. So they are part of a community, part of a family, actually, and it is always this IVC family. And I think that It's not just, here you are, here's a bed, there's our competition, pay a lot of money for a hotel, you might win. Whereas with our competition, it's about mentoring, it's about nurturing. Within the competition itself, apart from the rounds in which you sing, there are mentoring opportunities, vocal health, there's feedback from the jury, there's masterclasses. So it's a whole sort of musical festival thing going on. And certainly the juries that we now have are based upon people who are able to offer employment rather than just the very famous singer coming in to talk about being a very famous singer, but in fact can't actually help an artist, can help an artist vocally, but can't provide anything economically or career-wise.
As an internationally active singer and now also the general and artistic director, what is your advice to young singers today?
Ask questions. Don't take no for an answer. Realise that a lot of people are there to help you. Some are not there to help you. Question your teacher, question your coaches, question your own judgment on everything, and make your own decisions and stick to it. If I, at the age of 19, had taken the advice of a professional singer stroke colleague, as he is now, who'd said, Andrew, you have no voice, I think you should go and work in a bank, at the age of 57, I wouldn't have achieved what I did. So you have a question, ask the questions, don't expect to be given it. Be inquisitive, find out for yourself. And if you don't feel you're getting what you need from a person, a teacher, a project, find out why and try and fix that. And we should be able to now be old enough and ugly enough to go, yes, I'm going to ask these questions. Don't take it at face value because not everyone has all the answers.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Andrew. Let's hear an excerpt from Dalila's Mon cœur s'ouvre à ta voix, sung by Claudia Ribas, winner of the 2024 edition of the International Voice Competition of s-Hertogenbosch. Another very special competition is the Pietro Antonio Cesti competition in Innsbruck as part of the Festival of Ancient Music held there each summer. I created it together with Baroque conductor Alessandro De Marchi in 2010, and over the years it has grown in impact to now be the world's most important Baroque singing competition. With a jury rigorously made of artistic or casting directors of festivals and theatres, it is a true showcase where young singers can catch the attention of business professionals who can immediately turn what they heard at the competition into engagements, into work and experience for the young artists, into income, into visibility. Apart from the usual prizes, the competition also serves as a sort of casting tool for a production in the following year's festival, and suitable participants can obtain these sought-after roles even if they were not competition winners. Many of former Cesti participants have moved on to successful work in opera houses and festivals thanks to the visibility and the invitations they received in the competition. And there's hardly a Baroque opera production happening in the world that does not employ Cesti alumni. In fact, during the most recent edition last August, the festival's artistic director Eva Maria Sens told me that out of the 43 soloist singers involved in the festival, 23 were former Cesti participants. But let's hear from one of them. Winner of the Cesti in 2021 was Israeli soprano Shira Patchornik. She has since appeared in a wide variety of repertoire, but she has always expertly returned to the Baroque repertoire, be it in the world premiere recording of Auletta's Orazio with Federico Maria Sardelli from the Festival della Valle d'Itria, or in Vivaldi's Arsilda in an ongoing project with La Cetra Baroque Orchestra with Andrea Marcon. Shira, welcome to Opera Road Trip.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm super, super happy to be here.
You won the 2021 edition of the Cesti competition. What has this victory meant for you? Has it meant anything for your career start?
Well, it meant many things for me, both career-wise and on a personal level. Career, it really opened so many doors for me. I actually didn't even realize the potential of the competition when I applied. Already from within the competition, I won several engagement prizes. So in Melk with Michael Schade, now repeatedly in Festival der Resonanten Festival was also a prize that I had gotten, and I was since then also often in Vienna. Not to mention that, of course, I got to know you, and you within a couple months also invited me to Turin, to Torino, and it just kind of put my name on the maps.
I'm glad to hear that the competition brought you so much. And we have seen how careers have really started thanks to the exposure obtained in singing competitions. But we also hear about negative experiences, of the impressions that some competitions were rigged or in some way unduly influenced, be it by singing teachers or by agencies. Have you had any such experience? Do you have any thoughts on this?
Look, when it comes to competitions being rigged, I wouldn't even bother spending a breath over it. We don't know. Anything and everything could be. But why would we spend time thinking of anything that could be, that could go against us, when we should focus on the actual important thing? Competitions, we don't apply and go to competitions to win first prize. It's a wonderful, incredible, beautiful bonus. But we go there to have an opportunity to show our artistry to a bigger panel of important people who are in the jury, sometimes in the audience, learn from our colleagues and see where we could grow further. Not every competition would fit you. And as you said, it is so subjective, but life is so subjective anyway. So I wouldn't bother thinking about pleasing everyone. There is just no chance. You'll never please everybody. Work on what you know or think. Really try to get the historically informed performance well learned, and then perform it with your heart, with your own artistry. And sure, some people will have something to say, and you will not work everywhere, but you will work in some places. And anyway, you only want to work ideally with people who really appreciate you. Search for the people who will appreciate you. And if you constantly get no, then take a moment to ask yourself the difficult questions. You might have to reconsider not necessarily the whole profession, but who your teacher is maybe, the rep that you're doing, how you're presenting yourself, so many things. But if it's rigged, I don't care, I don't know.
You have successfully participated also in other competitions with, let's say, more regular repertoire. Which role would you say does the choice of repertoire play in competitions?
When it comes to repertoire, a thing that I loved about Cesti is how excited you, as in the panel of judges, were excited about rep that you were not familiar with or very absolutely less familiar with. I remember after one of the rounds, you, Sebastian, you went on stage and you said very proudly and excitingly how happy you were that this year there was not a single tornami in the entire competition. And how excited all of you were when I sang Volgi Prokri's aria from Gli Amori d'Apollo e di Daphne by Cavalli, because it was, some of you I know never heard it before, and it's absolutely stunning. And this is something that I kind of thought to myself, wow, fantastic, I should take it further on. And then when I did kind of more like regular, in quotation mark, competition, if I brought rep that was not very well known, I was always really scolded for that. And that's something that my younger self was really surprised by. I just did not understand the unwritten, unspoken rule of competitions. So I think maybe it should be clearer. Maybe we should open our mind a little bit more to the art that somebody could bring with an aria that the panel might not know. So I'm just putting it out there.
Yes, I remember how relieved we all were that year not to have to listen to Morgana's beautiful but a bit overused Tornami a vagheggiar from Alcina at all. A great sign that our efforts in trying to open singers' horizons to the vastness of the Baroque repertoire and to be more curious and maybe daring are starting to pay off. In closing, would you like to leave a word of advice to young singers?
For sure. Well, I think maybe the most important thing for the entire profession, not just for competitions, is going in, kind of remember why you're there. Remember why you started singing in the first place and why you are after this career. Remember the joy that it brings you and lead with that. And I liked another thing that you said, Sebastian, in the competition. You went on stage after the first or second round and you reminded all of us that this is an opera competition, not just singing competition point, but an opera singing competition, which means you do want to see people tell a story on stage. And that's true, I think, to every opera competition. So always lead with your heart and with great intention, like strong colors, different colors. Be interesting, but from your heart, not from what you think people want to see. Find your own colors, present those.
In parting, let's listen to an excerpt from your Cesti-winning performance of Se pietà per me non senti from Handel's Giulio Cesare. Thank you so much, Shira, for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was absolutely lovely.
So what do we make of all of this? Competitions are not perfect, far from it. But when approached with care, humility, and transparency, they can be spaces for connection, growth, and discovery. Maybe the key is to shift how we think about them, not as the final word on talent, not as a ranking system, not as some flawed or evil system, not as a system at all, but as one of not too many paths singers can take to show themselves in front of the decision makers in the opera business. A high-pressure snapshot of a moment in time rather than a judgment of lifelong potential. At the end of the day, as Shira told us, the real goal isn't to win a prize. It is to get notice, gain experience, working under pressure. It's to move an audience, to tell a story, to find your voice and share it. Believe me, no jury member just wants to sit there and miss a perfectly good day of work. We want the artists to succeed, to be special, to be in control of their instruments, to have stories to tell with their singing. We want to be moved. We want to find artists that we can then insert in our seasons and festivals, present them to our audiences, and we want them to grow over the years. Thanks for listening to today's somewhat different opera road trip. If you've got a competition story, triumph, frustration, or anything in between, I'd love to hear it, so don't hesitate to drop me a message on Instagram. With the next episode, we go back to exploring the operatic history of our European neighbours, and I would be happy if you joined me here again a month from now. I thank Beata Klatka, Kristina Mkhitaryan, Shira Patchornik, and Lars Flaaten and Andrew Watts for joining us on the episode today. Thanks to Hannah Griffiths for lending Kristina her English-languaged voice, and to the Opera Vision team for supporting me on this exciting journey of the opera road trip. There's plenty more online on operavision.eu, where, apart from finding all episodes of our podcast, you can watch Caldara's Iphigenia in Aulide from the Innsbruck Festival of Ancient Music, or, only for a few more weeks, the full final of the Queen Sonja Singing Competition from Oslo. This series is curated, edited and presented by me, Sebastian Schwarz. Opera Vision is supported by the Creative Europe program of the European Union in the framework of the Opera Europa Next Generation platform. Until next time, keep singing, keep questioning, and take care. And take care. And take care. And take care.